New York City shines under a blanket of lights, a place where dreams rise as high as the skyscrapers piercing the Manhattan skyline. It's a city of ambition, where people chase success through the hustle of crowded streets and the glow of Times Square. But beneath the glamour, stories of love and betrayal unfold in the shadows of those towering buildings. This is one such story, a tale of a woman trapped by loyalty, a man consumed by greed, and another whose heart awakens at the sight of her pain. Welcome to a journey that begins in darkness, but promises a glimmer of hope. Clara Evans walks through this world with a quiet grace. She's a woman of soft words and sharp mind, her brown eyes holding a kindness that life hasn't yet erased. At 30, she works as an accountant, her days filled with numbers and her nights shadowed by a marriage that weighs her down. Clara's life wasn't always like this. Once, she dreamed of owning a flower shop, arranging petals into moments of joy. But those dreams faded when she tied her fate to James Carter, her husband of 3 years. She stays with him not out of love, but for a promise she made to someone else, her father, Henry Evans. Henry is a frail man, his heart weakened by years of illness. A retired schoolteacher, he now relies on a machine to keep his pulse steady, its cost covered by James's paycheck. Clara would do anything to keep him alive, even if it means enduring a man who sees her as a tool rather than a partner. James Carter is a different creature altogether. At 32, he's a rising star in the cutthroat world of New York advertising, his charm masking a hunger for power. He works late nights at a sleek Madison Avenue firm, crafting campaigns that sell dreams he doesn't believe in. To James, success is everything, and he's willing to sacrifice anyone to climb the ladder, even his own wife. Across the city, in a glass-walled office atop a midtown tower, sits Ethan Brooks. At 35, he's the CEO of Brooks Innovations, a tech empire that shapes the future with every line of code. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes, Ethan commands respect without raising his voice. He's a man who built his fortune from nothing, orphaned young and driven by a need to prove himself. Yet, despite his wealth, Ethan keeps his heart guarded. Colleagues call him cold, a machine in a tailored suit, but they don't see the loneliness he hides. He's never known love, never felt its pull, until one night changes everything. That night comes at the Waldorf Astoria, a grand hotel where chandeliers gleam and champagne flows. James attends a company gala, a chance to secure a multi-million-dollar contract with Brooks Innovations. The pressure from his boss is relentless, a deadline looming like a storm cloud over his career. He needs Ethan's signature, and he's desperate enough to play a dangerous game. Clara is his pawn, a piece he'll move without hesitation. He has a plan, one that will strip her dignity and push her into Ethan's room, a twisted offering to win favor. But James doesn't know what's coming. He doesn't see that Ethan, the man he hopes to impress, will look at Clara and find something he never expected. Clara stands at the edge of this moment, unaware of the storm about to break. She wears a dress James chose, its fabric clinging to her like a second skin, a symbol of the control he wields. Her heart beats fast, not from excitement, but from dread. She knows James is up to something, his whispers sharp with intent. Across the room, Ethan watches the crowd, his mind on business, until his eyes catch a figure he can't ignore. Their worlds are about to collide, a clash of betrayal and beauty that will rewrite their fates. What happens when a man's cruelty opens the door to another's love? Can a single glance spark a flame strong enough to burn away years of pain? This is where our story begins, in a city that never sleeps, with a woman who deserves more than she's been given, and a man who might just give it to her. The Waldorf Astoria glows with golden light, its ballroom alive with the hum of voices and the clink of glasses. It's a gala for James's advertising firm, a night of polished suits and forced smiles, where deals are made over champagne and handshakes. James Carter stands near the bar, his jaw tight, his fingers drumming against a glass of whiskey. His boss dropped a bomb earlier that day, a deadline that could make or break his career. Brooks Innovations wants a new campaign, a multi-million-dollar contract, and Ethan Brooks holds the key. James needs to impress him, and he's running out of time. His eyes flick to Clara across the room, her presence his last card to play. Clara adjusts the straps of the dress James handed her before they left home. It's a deep red number, too tight, too revealing, nothing like the modest sweaters she prefers. She feels exposed, every step drawing stares she doesn't want. James caught her at the apartment, his voice low and cold. He said, "Wear this tonight and get Ethan to sign the deal, or I'll cut your dad's hospital funds." "You want him to die?" Her stomach twisted, but she couldn't argue. Henry's face flashed in her mind, his frail hands clutching hers during his last visit to the ICU. The machine keeping him alive costs thousands, and James pays it all. She nodded, silent, and slipped into the dress, trading her pride for her father's breath. Now she lingers near a table of hors d'oeuvres, her hands trembling as she picks up a glass of water. James weaves through the crowd, his smile practiced, his eyes calculating. He reaches her, leaning close, his breath sharp with liquor. "It's time," he says. "Ethan's upstairs in his suite. You're going to convince him to sign. Don't mess this up, Clara, or Henry's done." Her throat tightens, but she nods again, the weight of his words pressing her down. She follows him to the elevator, her heels clicking on marble, her heart pounding louder with every floor they climb. The doors open on the top level, a quiet hallway lined with plush carpet and dim lights. James stops at a door marked 1801, Ethan's private suite for the night. He turns to Clara, his hands rough as he grabs her coat, a thin layer of warmth she'd clung to. "You don't need this," he says, yanking it off her shoulders. The dress beneath shimmers, its neckline plunging, her skin bare from collarbone to waist. She gasps, arms crossing instinctively, but James grips her wrist. "Stand up straight. Knock on that door and get inside. Tell him you're my gift, my apology for a late pitch. He'll understand." His voice is a blade, cutting through her resistance. She stares at him, tears welling, but he steps back, pointing. "Do it, Clara. Now." She lifts a shaky hand, her knuckles brushing the wood. One knock, then two, each sound a surrender. James watches, satisfied, then turns and strides away, his footsteps fading into the hum of the elevator. The door swings open, and Clara stumbles forward, her balance lost in a flood of shame. Ethan Brooks stands there, a stack of papers in one hand, his tie loosened after hours of meetings. He's taller than she imagined, his blue eyes narrowing as he takes her in. She catches herself against the frame, the dress slipping slightly, revealing a shoulder she can't cover. Her breath hitches, her voice a whisper. "I'm sorry, I didn't want to come." Ethan drops the papers, instinct kicking in as he steadies her. His hands are firm but gentle, guiding her inside before she falls. The door clicks shut, and he steps back, studying her. The dress clings to her like a wound, her arms wrapped tight around herself. "What's going on?" he asks, his tone sharp but not unkind. Clara's eyes meet his, glassy with unshed tears. "My husband, James Carter, he said it's for a deal. He'll stop paying for my dad's hospital if I don't." She trails off, her head bowing, the weight of it too much. Ethan's jaw tightens, a flicker of anger crossing his face, but it's not aimed at her. He moves to a chair, pulling his suit jacket from the back and draping it over her shoulders. The fabric is warm, heavy, a shield against the cold air and her humiliation. "Sit down," he says, pointing to a plush sofa near a window overlooking the city. She sinks into it, clutching the jacket, her fingers tracing its lapels. Ethan sits across from her, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "Who's your dad?" he asks. Clara swallows, her voice barely audible. "Henry Evans. He's got a bad heart. James pays for the machine keeping him alive. If I don't do this, he'll cut it off." She looks up, expecting judgment, but finds something else in Ethan's gaze, something soft and unguarded. He runs a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "Your husband's a piece of work," he says, almost to himself. Then, softer, You don't have to do this. Not for him, not for anyone. Clara shakes her head, a tear slipping free. You don't understand. I can't lose my dad. He's all I have left. Ethan watches her, the way she fights to hold herself together, the strength beneath her fragility. His chest tightens, a pull he hasn't felt in years. She's beautiful, yes, but it's more than that. It's her heart laid bare in this moment that hooks him. He's seen deals brokered with money and power, but never with someone's soul. Listen to me, he says, his voice low, steady. You're not a bargaining chip. I don't want you here because he sent you. I want you to stay because I'm asking you to. Let me help you figure this out. Clara blinks, startled, her lips parting in disbelief. Why would you do that? She asks. Ethan leans closer, his eyes locked on hers. Because I've never met anyone like you, and I'm not letting you walk back to that bastard tonight. She stares at him, her breath catching, and for the first time in years, she feels seen, not as a tool, not as a burden, but as Clara. And Ethan in that instant knows he's lost, his heart claimed by a woman he's just met, a woman he'll fight to save. Clara sits on the sofa in Ethan's suite, the city lights painting streaks of gold across her face. His jacket still rests on her shoulders, a borrowed armor against the chill of the night and the weight of her confession. She's just told him about James, about her father, about the deal that brought her here. Ethan listens, his expression unreadable, but inside a storm brews. He's met men like James before, climbers who trade anything for a step up. But this feels different. This cuts deeper. Clara's voice trembles as she speaks, and he knows there's more to her story, a shadow lurking behind her words. He needs to understand it, not just for her, but for the pull he feels, the one that started the moment she stumbled through his door. 3 years ago, Clara's life was simpler, brighter. She was 27, fresh from college, with a degree in accounting and a head full of dreams. She met James at a coffee shop near Union Square, his easy smile and quick wit drawing her in. He was ambitious, a junior ad executive with big plans, and she admired his drive. They married 6 months later, a small ceremony in Brooklyn, with Henry beaming from the front row. Clara wore a white dress she'd sewn herself, daisies tucked into her hair, and believed in forever. That night, their wedding night, should have been the start of something beautiful. Instead, it marked the end of who she used to be. James had a meeting that evening, a last-minute pitch for a car dealership account. He told Clara it was routine, nothing to worry about, but his eyes were restless, his hands fidgeting. "Come with me," he said, pulling her along to a hotel bar downtown. She didn't question it, trusting him, her new husband. There he introduced her to a man in a gray suit, a client with a cigar and a leer that made her skin crawl. James handed her a glass of wine, his voice smooth. "Drink this, honey. Relax. We need this guy on board." She sipped it, the taste bitter, and soon her head spun, her limbs heavy. She remembers James whispering, "Go talk to him. Make him happy, or your dad's medical bills are on us alone." Henry had just been diagnosed, his heart failing, and James knew she'd do anything to save him. Clara tried to stand, her vision blurring, but the man guided her to a booth. She doesn't recall much after that, just fragments, his hand on her arm, James watching from across the room. Nothing happened, not the way James later claimed, but he snapped photos anyway, her dress slipping off one shoulder as she slumped against the seat. She woke the next morning in their apartment, James beside her, his face cold. "You messed up last night," he said, showing her the pictures. "You flirted with him. You're lucky I got the deal. Don't ever embarrass me again." She protested, confused, but he held the photos over her like a guillotine. "One word, and these go to your dad." Imagine what it'd do to his heart. From then on, he used them to keep her in line, a leash she couldn't break. Now, Clara lives in a cage of his making. She works at a small accounting firm near Wall Street, her salary barely covering groceries while James controls the rest. Every month, he pays Henry's hospital bills, a reminder of her debt to him. He doesn't touch her, doesn't speak to her beyond commands, his resentment a wall between them. She's his prisoner, her dreams of flowers and freedom buried under his threats. She stopped fighting years ago, her spirit worn thin, until tonight, until Ethan's voice pulled her back. Sitting here, she feels the past clawing at her, a wound she's never let heal. She doesn't tell him all of it, not yet, but her eyes betray the depth of her pain. Ethan watches her, his mind racing. He's no stranger to betrayal, growing up with a father who sold their family home for a bottle of gin, leaving him and his mother on the street. But Clara's story hits harder, a quiet courage woven into her surrender. He stands, pacing to the window, the city sprawling below like a map of his own climb. He's built Brooks Innovations from scratch, a fortress of code and steel. But it's never filled the emptiness inside. Tonight, though, something shifts. He turns back to her, his decision made. "I'm going to find out what he's hiding," he says. "No one should live like this." He picks up his phone, dialing a number he rarely uses. "Mark, it's Ethan. I need a favor. Dig into a guy named James Carter, works at that ad firm on Madison. I want everything, especially anything from 3 years back." Mark's a private investigator, an old friend from leaner days, discreet and thorough. Ethan hangs up, meeting Clara's gaze. "You don't have to go back to him tonight," he says. "Stay here, I've got a guest room. We'll figure this out." She hesitates, fear warring with a flicker of trust. "Why are you doing this?" she asks again. He steps closer, his voice soft. "Because I see you, Clara, and I can't look away." She nods, exhaustion winning, and he shows her to a spare room down the hall. The bed is crisp, white, a world away from the chaos she knows. She sinks into it, Ethan's jacket still around her, his scent lingering like a promise. He returns to the living room, pouring a coffee, his mind on overdrive. Mark calls back an hour later, his voice low. "Found something. Carter's got a history. 3 years ago he closed a deal with a car company right after his wedding. A coworker saw him set up his wife that night, staged some photos. Nothing happened, but he's been using them ever since. Guy's a snake." Ethan's grip tightens on the mug, anger simmering. "Thanks, Mark. Keep digging." He sits staring at the skyline, Clara's face burned into his thoughts. She's asleep now, safe for the first time in years, and he feels it, a tether forming between them. He doesn't know her well, not yet, but he knows this. She's worth fighting for. Tomorrow he'll start unraveling James's lies, but tonight he lets himself imagine a different ending, one where she's free, where she's his. He types a message on his phone, an anonymous line to hers, a number Mark pulled. "You're stronger than you know. You deserve love." He hits send, a quiet vow, and leans back, the city humming below, a witness to the beginning of something new. Clara wakes to sunlight filtering through the curtains of Ethan's guest room, the city's distant hum a soft backdrop. She's still wrapped in his jacket, the fabric carrying a trace of cedar and coffee, a comfort she hasn't known in years. For a moment, she forgets the weight of last night, the gala, James's cruel hands stripping her coat away. Then it floods back, and her chest tightens. She checks her phone, a single message from an unknown number glowing on the screen. "You're stronger than you know. You deserve love." Her breath catches, a flicker of warmth cutting through the dread. She doesn't know it's Ethan, not yet, but the words settle into her like a seed taking root. Ethan knocks lightly on the door, a tray in his hands, coffee and croissants balanced carefully. "Morning," he says, his voice steady but kind. "Thought you might need this." She sits up, smoothing her hair, the dress from last night a crumpled reminder of her shame. "You didn't have to," she says, but takes the coffee, her fingers brushing his. He sits on a chair across from her, watching as she sips, her eyes darting to the window. "You're safe here," he adds. "I meant what I said last night. We'll figure this out." Clara nods, unsure, but there's something in his gaze, a quiet strength that makes her want to believe him. She can't stay forever, though. James expects her home, and Henry's next hospital payment looms. "I have to go back," she says, standing, handing him the jacket. Ethan frowns, but doesn't push. "Let me drive you," he offers. "And if you need anything, call me." He scribbles his number on a card, pressing it into her hand. She leaves, the ride silent. His presence is shield she doesn't want to lose. At her apartment, James is gone, off to work, and she breathes easier. But his threat echoes, a chain she can't break. She texts Ethan later, a simple "thank you," and he replies, "anytime." It's small, but it's a start. Days pass, and Ethan finds a way to see her again. He calls her office, posing as a client needing tax advice, a pretext thin but effective. Clara agrees, meeting him at Brooks Innovations after hours. The building is quiet, its glass walls reflecting the city's glow. He greets her in a corner office, papers spread out, but it's a ruse. "I didn't really need help with numbers," he admits, a half smile tugging at his lips. "I just wanted to see you." She blushes, caught off guard, and he pulls a gray sweater from a bag. "For you," he says. "I noticed you didn't like that dress. Thought this might feel better." She takes it, the wool soft against her skin, and slips it on, a shield against the memory of James's choice. They talk, first about nothing, then everything. Ethan asks about her life, her dreams, and she tells him about the flower shop she once sketched in a notebook, now lost somewhere in her closet. "Why'd you stop?" he asks. She shrugs, her voice low. "James said it was a waste of time, said I'd never make it." Ethan leans forward, his eyes intense. "He's wrong. You could start small, a cart maybe. I'd buy every flower you sell." She laughs, a sound she hasn't heard from herself in too long, and it lights something in him. He's falling, deeper than he planned, her resilience pulling him in. Their meetings become a secret rhythm. Clara tells James she's working late, a lie he buys because it suits his ego. She meets Ethan at Central Park, the air crisp with autumn, leaves crunching under their feet. They sit on a bench near the Bethesda fountain, the water glinting under moonlight. He points to the stars, naming ones he learned as a kid, Orion and Cassiopeia, his voice a steady hum. "I used to look up there when I had nothing. He's kept me going." She watches him, his profile sharp against the night, and asks, "What about now?" He turns, meeting her gaze. "Now, I've got something worth holding on to. You." She tells him more, about Henry's quiet pride in her, about the daisies she wore at her wedding, now a bitter memory. Ethan listens, his hand brushing hers, a touch she doesn't pull away from. "I never thought I'd feel this," he says one night, the park empty around them. "I built walls, kept everyone out, then you walked in and they just fell." Clara's heart races, fear and hope tangling together. "I'm married," she whispers, a reminder to herself as much as him. He nods, serious. "I know. I'm not asking you to choose me. I'm just asking you to let me be here." She doesn't answer, but her hand stays in his, a silent yes. Their time grows bolder, stolen moments stretching into hours. Ethan brings her to a rooftop garden his company owns, a hidden patch of green above the city. She runs her fingers over roses and lavender, her eyes bright. "This is what I wanted," she says. "Something alive, something mine." He steps closer, his voice low. "It can be yours. Start with one flower. I'll be your first customer, like I said." She smiles, real this time, and he feels it, a shift. She's healing, piece by piece, and he's part of it. He wants to kiss her, but he waits. Knowing she's not ready, knowing she's still tethered to James. James notices, though. He's not blind, not entirely. Clara's late nights pile up, her excuses thin, and his suspicion festers. He follows her one evening, trailing her cab to the park, but loses her in the crowd. He doesn't see Ethan, not yet, but he feels her slipping, a control he's losing. At home, he snaps, "Where were you?" She holds steady, her voice calm. "Work. You wanted me to keep up, didn't you?" He glares, unconvinced, but lets it drop. She's changing, a strength he didn't expect, and it unnerves him. He doubles down, checking her phone, but finds nothing. She's careful, her texts to Ethan sparse, her trust in him growing. Clara feels it too, the shift inside her. Ethan's words, his faith, stir something dormant. She digs out her old notebook one night, sketches of tulips and lilies filling the pages. She shows it to him at their next meeting, her hands shaking. "I found this," she says. "Maybe I could try again." He takes it, flipping through, his smile wide. "This is beautiful, Clara. You're beautiful." He sets it down, stepping closer, his hand cupping her cheek. "You don't need his permission. You never did." She leans into him, her breath warm against his palm, and for a moment, there all that exists, the city fading below. Their bond deepens, a quiet defiance against James's hold. She starts planning small steps, a future she can touch. Ethan helps, researching carts, vendors, his belief in her unwavering. She's not free yet, not fully, but she's closer, her spirit waking with every night they share. James looms, a threat she can't ignore. But Ethan's there, a light she clings to. She doesn't know what's coming, the storm James will unleash, but for now she has this, a love blooming in secret, a hope she's learning to claim. The Brooks Innovations Gala fills a sleek ballroom in Midtown, its glass walls reflecting the city's pulse. Guests in tuxedos and gowns mingle under soft lights, their laughter mixing with the hum of ambition. Clara stands near the edge of the room, her gray sweater swapped for a simple black dress Ethan picked, elegant but hers, not James's choice. She's here at Ethan's invitation, a quiet presence beside him as he works the crowd. Their secret meetings have stretched weeks now, her heart tethered to his, but tonight feels different. James is here too, his eyes tracking her from across the floor, a predator sensing prey slipping free. Ethan stays close, his hand brushing hers when no one's looking, a reassurance she clings to. He's spent days planning this night, not just for business, but for her. Mark, his investigator, delivered more last week, a recording from an old co-worker of James's, a man named Tom who saw the wedding night set up 3 years ago. Carter bragged about it, Tom said on tape, staged those photos to keep her quiet. Nothing happened, but he's held it over her ever since. Ethan's kept it close, a weapon he hopes to never use, but James's shadow grows darker, and he knows time's running out. James watches them, his whiskey glass sweating in his grip. He's noticed Clara's absences, her late nights, her new steadiness. He followed her once, lost her in Central Park, but tonight confirms it. She's with Ethan, too comfortable, too alive. His deal with Brooks Innovations hangs by a thread, his boss breathing down his neck, and Clara's defiance stings worse than failure. He downs the drink, weaving through the crowd, his mind a tangle of rage and desperation. He needs her back in line, needs Ethan's signature, and he'll break her to get both. He waits until Ethan steps away, called to a quick meeting with investors, leaving Clara alone near a quiet alcove. He moves fast, grabbing her arm, pulling her into the shadowed corner. "What the hell are you doing?" he hisses, his breath sharp with alcohol. Clara flinches, but doesn't pull away, her eyes steady. "Let go, James," she says, her voice low. He tightens his grip, leaning close. "You think you can play me? I see you with him. Leave Brooks, or I'll send those photos to every hospital in New York. Your dad's dead without me." Her stomach drops, Henry's frail face flashing before her, but she holds firm. "You've lied enough," she says. "I'm done being your puppet." His face twists, a snarl forming, but before he can speak, Ethan's voice cuts through. "Get your hands off her." Ethan strides over, his frame tense, his eyes locked on James. The crowd shifts, heads turning, but he doesn't care. James releases Clara, stepping back, his smile forced. "Just a husband talking to his wife, Brooks. No need to play hero." Ethan ignores him, turning to Clara. "You okay?" She nods, rubbing her arm, and he faces James again, his voice cold. "You don't talk to her. You don't touch her. Not anymore. James laughs, sharp and hollow. She's mine, not yours. Ask her about our wedding night. She's got secrets you don't want. Clara stiffens, the memory of those photos a knife in her gut. But Ethan doesn't flinch. He steps closer, his height towering over James. I know about that night, he says. I know you set her up, took pictures to trap her. You're the one with secrets, Carter, and they're about to come out. James pales, his bravado cracking, but he doubles down. Prove it, big shot. You've got nothing. Ethan pulls his phone from his pocket, tapping the screen, and Tom's voice spills out, clear and damning. Carter bragged about it, staged those photos to keep her quiet. Nothing happened, but he's held it over her ever since. The room quiets, guests pausing mid-sentence, the recording echoing off the walls. James freezes, his eyes darting, searching for an escape. That's a lie, he stammers, but his voice shakes and no one buys it. Clara steps forward, her hands trembling but her spine straight. It's true, she says, loud enough for all to hear. 3 years ago he forced me to that bar, took those pictures, made me think I'd betrayed him. He's used them to control me, to keep me paying for my dad. I'm done. Her words hang, heavy, a confession and a release, and Ethan's chest swells with pride. James lunges, grabbing her wrist again, his face red. You ungrateful little... He doesn't finish. Ethan moves, fast, shoving him back, pinning him against the wall with a forearm to his chest. Touch her again and you're finished, he growls. Security steps in, 2 men in black suits, but Ethan waves them off, releasing James with a shove. He's not worth it. James stumbles, glaring, but the fight's gone out of him. The crowd murmurs, phones out, whispers spreading like wildfire. Ethan turns to Clara, his hand finding hers, grounding her. You're free now, he says. He can't hurt you. She shakes her head, tears brimming. He still has those photos. He'll use them. Ethan squeezes her hand, his voice firm. Not anymore. He nods to a corner where 2 police officers approach, badges glinting under the lights. I called them yesterday, he says. Gave them the recording, the witness statement. He's done. The officers reach James, one reading his rights, the other cuffing his wrists. James Carter, you're under arrest for coercion and extortion, the officer says, his tone flat. James twists, shouting, You can't do this. I'll ruin you both. But they lead him away, his threats swallowed by the closing doors. Clara watches, her knees weak, the weight of years lifting with every step he takes out of her life. Ethan pulls her close, his arm around her shoulders, steadying her. It's over, he says, and she believes him. The crowd parts, some staring, some clapping, but she doesn't care. She turns to Ethan, her voice breaking. I've lived in his shadow too long. I want out. I want a divorce. He nods, his eyes soft. You've got it. Whatever you need, I'm here. She leans into him, her head against his chest, his heartbeat a rhythm she can trust. The gala resumes, chatter rising, but Clara feels detached, a new lightness in her bones. Ethan guides her to a balcony, the night air cool against her skin. You were incredible in there, he says, leaning on the railing, the city sprawling below. I didn't do much, she replies, but he shakes his head. You stood up to him. That's everything. She looks at him, his face lit by the glow of skyscrapers, and sees more than a savior. She sees a man who's given her back herself. Thank you, she says, simple but deep, and he smiles, a rare warmth breaking through his usual reserve. They stand there, the world shrinking to just them, the past unraveling behind her. James is gone, his threats empty, his power broken. Clara breathes, free for the first time in years, and Ethan stays beside her, his presence a promise. She doesn't know what tomorrow holds, but she knows this: she's not alone anymore. The city hums, a witness to her liberation, and in Ethan's eyes, she finds a future she might dare to claim. A year has passed since the gala, and Brooklyn hums with its usual rhythm, a quieter pulse than Manhattan's roar. Clara stands behind the counter of her flower shop, a small storefront on a cobblestone street, its windows bursting with color. Petals and promises, she named it, a nod to the dreams she reclaimed and the vows she now makes to herself. Tulips line the shelves, roses spill from buckets, and daisies nod in vases, their simplicity an echo of her wedding day, now rewritten in her own terms. The air smells of earth and bloom, a scent that heals her with every breath. She's 31 now, her brown eyes brighter, her hands steady as she ties a ribbon around a bouquet. Henry sits in a chair near the door, his oxygen tank humming softly, his smile wide as he watches her work. He's better these days, his heart stabilized with new treatments Ethan funded after James's arrest. "You've done it, kiddo," he says, his voice raspy but warm. "I always knew you could." Clara laughs, handing him a daisy. "You're biased, Dad." He tucks it behind his ear, grinning, and she feels a lightness she'd forgotten. James is a memory. Locked away in a prison upstate, sentenced to 5 years for coercion and extortion. The photos, his last weapon, were destroyed, evidence in a case that set her free. She thinks of that night often, the gala where Ethan turned her world right side up. He didn't just save her from James, he gave her back her voice, her choice. After the arrest, he hired a lawyer, a sharp woman named Rachel, who filed Clara's divorce papers in a week. James signed, no fight left. His empire of lies crumbled. Clara moved out, taking Henry to a small apartment near Prospect Park, and started over. Ethan was there through it all, quiet but constant, his support a lifeline she didn't expect. He never pushed, never demanded, just stayed, a steady hand when hers shook. The shop came later, a dream she dared to chase. Ethan found the space, a lease he'd negotiated down to something she could afford. "Start small," he'd said, echoing their nights in Central Park. And she did. A cart first, then this, her hands shaping a future petal by petal. Customers come daily, locals mostly, drawn by her warmth and the stories she tells with every arrangement. She's good at it, better than she imagined, and every sale feels like a victory. Ethan's her best client, stopping by with excuses, a rose for his desk, a lily for no reason at all. She knows he doesn't need them, but she loves that he comes. Today's different, though. The bell above the door jingles and Ethan steps in, his suit crisp, his dark hair catching the afternoon light. He holds a small bundle, white carnations tied with twine, her favorite flower from a night they'd spent on his rooftop garden. "For you," he says, setting them on the counter. She smiles, taking them, her fingers brushing his. "You're spoiling me," she teases, but her eyes soften, seeing something new in him. He's nervous, a rare crack in his calm, and it makes her pause. "What's wrong?" she asks, setting the flowers down. He takes a breath, stepping closer, his voice low so Henry won't hear. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. And that's why I'm here." He pulls a box from his pocket, small, velvet, and her heart skips. "Clara, I've spent a year watching you build this, watching you become you. I loved you that first night, when you walked into my room, broken but unbroken. I've loved you every day since, through every flower, every smile." He opens the box, a ring glinting inside. Simple, a single diamond set in gold. "I don't promise you the world because you've already made your own. I promise my world, to love you, to stand by you. Will you marry me?" She stares, her throat tight, tears welling. Henry coughs, a grin spreading, but stays quiet, letting her moment unfold. Clara thinks of the past, James's chains, the years she lost. Then she looks at Ethan, his blue eyes steady, his hand outstretched, and sees the future. Not a cage, but a home. "Yes," she says, her voice breaking into a laugh. "Yes, I will." He slips the ring on her finger, his hands trembling, and pulls her into his arms. She fits there, warm and safe, her head against his chest. His heartbeat a song she knows by heart. Henry claps, slow and deliberate, his eyes misty. "About time, Brooks," he calls, and they laugh, the sound filling the shop. Ethan kisses her forehead, soft, a promise sealed, and she feels it, a joy she'd stopped believing in. The sun dips low, casting a golden glow through the windows, bathing the flowers in light. They step outside, hand in hand, the city stretching before them. Clara looks at her shop, her father waving from the door, and Ethan beside her, his grip firm. She's freed not just from James, but for this, a life she chose. They walk down the street, the sky bruising purple, Brooklyn's quiet charm wrapping around them. She thinks of their first night, his jacket on her shoulders, his words cutting through her dark. He'd seen her then, truly seen her, and he sees her now, the woman she's become. "Where to?" he asks, his voice light. "Anywhere," she says, smiling, "as long as it's with you." He pulls her close, and they keep going, footsteps in sync, a new chapter unfolding under the city's watchful eye. Clara's journey ends here, not with a shadow but with light. She's built something beautiful, a shop, a love, a family. Ethan's beside her, his promise kept, his heart hers. The past fades, a distant echo, and the future blooms, vivid and real. New York hums on, its towers rising, its streets alive, but for them, it's this moment, this quiet happiness that matters most.